happening, Archon? It's time for another deck unboxing. And see, maybe do different type of analysis today, who knows? Look at it from different perspectives. Investigate all those good things that come with the game of KeyForge. Alright, so where am I getting things? Okay, so we have a Saurian Brobnar Dis deck. It's called Lord the Answer Gaius. That's an interesting name. The Answer. Well, with Brobnar, I'm curious what answers will be in here. Quad Berserker Slam, maybe? One can only hope. Alright, so we're putting down the answer. Let's see what's in store first, and then we'll start kind of picking apart the deck. So first up, we got an Alaka. Volcano. Calfine, no Berserker Slams. Calfine. Grok. Gron. Irestaff. Warrior's Reframe. Little Rapskull. Ogopogo. Skull. And now on to Dis. No Narp, so already a pretty solid Brobnar. We have Binding Irons. Harbinger of Doom. Imp Spectre. Infernus. Misery Exploit. Library of the Damned. Snag. Spider. Collar of Subordination, I think that's it. Oh, and a Neferu. Then we have an Axiom of Grisk. ×2. Imperium. Phalanx Strike. Raider Gallum. Senator Shrix. Tribute. Orator Hissaro. And Imperial Road. Okay, this is a really weird deck, just right off the get. So, when we're looking at a deck for sealed, the first thing we gotta know is the deck composition. How many creatures are in here? What houses do the creatures exist in? What am I gonna need to get on board? I think this has a low creature count. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay. So majority in Brobnar. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 creatures in Brobnar. So we're going to get on board with Brobnar, to say the least. The cool thing is that Orator Hissaro is going to work with the other houses. Raider Gallum. This is a great card. So the Imperial Road, that means I can use it to bring out my Raider Gallons for the Ember Control, because so far I'm pretty sure they are the only Ember Controls in this deck, which is a little unfortunate. That and Grok, I think. Oh no, Infernuses, duh, obviously. Double Infernus and Grok. So we got the Volcano to potentially pair with the Misery Exploits, which is kind of neat. No recursion. Let's just see what we got here for actual Ember. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7. So 7 printed Ember, yeah. So it's going to require a board, and that's going to be coming from the Brobnar side of things. The good news about this deck is that it can deal with boards very well. Double Phalanx Strike, double Axiom of Grisk. It also happens to have, whoops, that's not the one, Harbinger. So you're dealing with the board pretty well, and then you also have a Volcano. So the board is being dealt with. The good news about Alaka is you're going to have a lot of creatures, so you can probably get that working. I think this deck is very mediocre. I would not be actually, you know what? It could do some things, though. I'm going to be honest. It could do some things. I'm backtracking now. The Imperium and Senator Shrix is helpful for protection. You could make Neferu technically work in your favor. I could see that happening depending on how things work. Snag is obviously a good proposition. Archiving stuff for later, so Library of the Damned could be very useful. And yeah, this Little Rascal is a card I absolutely despise. So, okay. Now, looking at this deck, this is the hand you've been dealt. And you got to figure out how this is going to work. So, let's switch the focus here a little bit. So what I want to do is look at some of the things here. So Imperial Road is really great because it allows you to maybe not call Saurian sometimes and leave some things to be played as utility cards. So a great one is Orator Hissaro. So you can be in one of the other houses and then actually bring Orator Hissaro into play to utilize, maybe if you're in Brobnar, you're in Dis, you can use your Brobnar board because you're most likely going to be on board most with Brobnar. You can then bring in your Raider Gallons. You can even bring in your Senator Strixes, although I'm less confident in those. One of the big issues is the tributes are great and all, like having them is fantastic, but they're going to be put on something that is going to end up most likely not being protected. So like your best bet is putting them on like an Pogo, a Grown Nine Toes. I mean, other than that, there's nothing else that really protects it. There's no elusive. I mean, you could always collar something that captures well, but you also don't have a choice. So everything here is 5, so it's going to go on all those 5s, or Pogo at 6, or getting Grown Nine Toes. So I almost would like to do 1 damage to Grown Nine Toes, get it bigger, and then use it. But that may be difficult to do. So yeah, so that's how I think I would play my Saurian creatures in this, is I would want to use them in the sense of Imperial Road helps bring them out, use the Orator Hissaro for house cheating, and then these other ones more as like a little bit of utility. The Strix I'm not holding my breath on whatsoever. If you can maybe get it out early enough and like get it out early and somehow have the Imperium as well so you can ward it, or even like an Axiom so that you can wipe the board and ward that. Like if you can get both of these out with the Strix, that may be the only way it really survives. But again, I'm not hopeful for the Strix. I won't put all my baskets in that. This deck is definitely dealing with the board. That's happening without a doubt. I mean, double Axiom, double Phalanx Strike. And then obviously we got the tributes for the Ember Control. Now looking at Dis, the Nefru is an interesting card. I mean, if you can get on board with this deck and put down Nefru with a ward somehow, and then figure out a way to pop your Harbinger, that's one way that you could actually make it so that maybe your opponent doesn't gain a lot of Ember, but you can burst heavy. So I think that's kind of an interesting way of looking at it. I always love a Collar. Nothing wrong with that. Spider, I think, is a pretty cool card. I would almost want to pair that with the Ire Staff to get a little bit bigger, because it does have the poison when it attacks a flank creature and skirmish, so you can utilize those two things to make it a little bit bigger, fight into something that's big but maybe only has 1 armor, and hopefully some dinos with Exalted Ember, 1 armor that you can get through. So that's one interesting thing. I do think that this card is going to be very crucial in this game when you play with this. Things like saving your Raider Gallums with Imperial Road, I think that could be very, very powerful tool, as well as Orator Hissaro at the right time. I think you're going to want to save some of your Dino cards for the right moment, and Library of the Damned is going to help you do that, either to just store them and have 1 Dino burst, or to even set up what you need for something like an Imperial Road. Again, I've mentioned the Misery Exploits. These could work. The Phalanx Strike could come into play depending on the size of a creature. You don't know. So that's one thing. Again, I've talked about the Snag. It's a great way of controlling your opponent. You could even Phalanx Strike your own Imp Spectre if you wanted to. Binding Irons is fine. I mean, 3 chains is nothing to laugh at. Obviously, the Double Infernus are the all-stars of the Dis house. I think that's really great, and a good form of Ember Control in that house. So there is a bit of Ember Control in every house. This one I like is because it's Lose Ember, and then we got Capture Ember. Yeah, there's no actual steal, which is interesting, which is something I've noticed more. We got key cost increase, we got the Raiders for key cost increased, we've got the tributes for straight capturing, and we got the Infernuses for losing. And now we go into the last Ember Control card, which is the Grok, which is going to actually come into play and show us just how fighty it can get. So that requires a little more setup. One card I will pretty much always discard is Little Rapskull. I despise this card. I wish it did not exist anymore. It was nice that it was in AOA and should have stayed there. The fact that it's here is just bukkake. So yeah, this card I will almost always discard. There's very few instances. Warrior's Refrain seems fairly decent in this. The Brobnar is all above 3. The only Raider Gallons are not, and the Imp Spectre. So for the most part, the Warrior's Refrain is going to be quite good. You do have Skull, which I really like. You just basically need to do 1 attack with it, and if it assault kills a creature, then it gets a +1 power counter, is now avoiding the Warrior's Refrain. We got Ogopogo, of course, is great. It's just a little extra damage, pop wards, things like that. Again, I talked about the Ire Staff. If you know you're fighting, it's a great thing to use. Grok is obviously a great candidate for Ire Staff as well. Again, Grow on 9 Toes, most likely the target for tributes. Calfine, this could be really great. I really like this card when you fight into a lot of people, they'll do a setup in a game where they'll put out basically like what's it called, like a taunt creature, and then beside it have 2 lower creatures, but then also ward those creatures so they're extra annoying to deal with. And by having the Calfine, you can run that into the taunt creature and then pop those wards, and it gives you a little bit more leeway to do things like, for example, follow up with a Volcano and get rid of those 2, 3, and 4 power creatures that exist within Star Alliance that are just the bane of your existence. The Volcano can come in very much a lot of good ways, I think. I'm not afraid of this card. I do like it in certain situations, although I'm kind of hesitant in this deck because there is so much removal that is more controlled. I'm not sure if I do want to play Volcano a lot. And of course we have the Alakas. So I mean, great ways to get use out of Alaka is you use Imperial Road, drop your Orator Hissaro on some other guys you played, ready them, and then you can fight with one of them. Both Alakas can come into play ready. So that, for the most part, is my pretty full breakdown of this deck. I'm going to backtrack. I do think in the sealed environment, you could do very well with this deck. I will not be happy to see this card if I play this deck. Maybe tomorrow's Crucible and Coffee, I'll give this deck a test run just to see how it works. Because, yeah, I'm very curious about it now. So I hope this was helpful, and please let me know if you like the way I break it down, going through the houses and card by card this way, as opposed to the more general stance. I wanted to do a deep dive on a deck and see what you guys thought of that. So please do like and subscribe, and give me some feedback on this process. As always, may your Ember never be stolen and your keys forged promptly. Have a good one.